In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, we are going to talk about Tre Johnson. Tre Johnson is one of James's favorite prospects. He's been a big fan of Tre Johnson for years. Before he blew up nationally, James, that is my brother James, was talking about Tre Johnson. He was actually the first person that told me to keep this kid on the radar. So this is Tre Johnson's full scouting report debut on NBA Big Board. Stay tuned. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, and my co-host for today is my brother, James Barlowe. And like I said, we're going to talk about Tre Johnson. The last episode, we talked about Nolan Trayor. We talked about his strengths. James thinks he is the number 2 prospect on his unofficial big board. We're going to find out where James has Tre. All right, so I'll tell the audience, I'll tell anybody when it comes to Tre Johnson, you are the first person that told me about him. He may have been in ninth grade, maybe?
He was in 10th grade.
He was in 10th grade. And I'll let you tell the story. When did he first catch your attention as a potential NBA prospect?
All right, so look, long story short, I know some people. I'm connected a little bit in the Richardson suburb of Dallas, right? Kaysen Wallace went to Richardson High School. Teammate Rylan Griffin went to Richardson High School. They've started from day one, freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors. So they're 2 years older than him. Their senior year, they played Lake Highlands. Tre Johnson was there. And I wasn't able to go to the game because that's a big rivalry. You got to get there super early. I had something else going on. So I watched the replay on Huddle. Shout out to my kids that went to Richardson High School. They gave me the Huddle password. And I watched the game, and I told Ralph, I was like, yo, they got this sophomore named Tre Johnson, and he was the best player on the court that day. And this is when Kaysen was, he's about to be a burger boy. Rylan was going to
50,
Alabama. He was a
prospect.
he's a top 100 prospect. And when I tell you Tre Johnson got whatever he wanted that day, he got whatever he wanted, how he wanted it. And I told Ralph, I was like, yo, keep an eye on that kid because he has a lot of game. So fast forward, here we are, Tre Johnson, burger boy, spent his last year at Link. He led Lake Highlands to a state championship. His junior year, went to the next level, played for not a prep school, but
a basketball factory,
a basketball academy, and now he's
factory.
At Texas. Yes, factory. Excuse me. Shout out to Lake Academy. So I say that to say this: I am still very much a believer, but I do have my concerns about Tre Johnson's game at the next level. And that's why I'm here today.
All right. What are your concerns at the college level, if any?
So, again, he's about 6'6", maybe. I think they list him 6'5", 6'6". He is a tough shot taker, tough shot maker, but he isn't a great athlete in the half court, right? So,
all right, I'm gonna cut you off.
Cut me off, man. Go ahead.
He is a guy that I think his game isn't based off of being a great athlete. And I've told the story before, and I'll briefly share it again.
Yeah, tell that one too.
So I'm still not gonna mention the names. I'm gonna protect the guilty.
DM me for the names.
I told you, but I'll protect the guys. But it was last summer. I'm filming some pre-draft content. Some guys already, a couple guys already in the NBA. And they were doing their pre-draft workout in Dallas. And bear with me if you heard the story before.
Tell it again.
It's like 1:00 in the afternoon, and Tre walks in the gym. I'm thinking, like, man, are you supposed to be in lunch or PE or geometry or something? He comes in. And they're already playing. Like, these guys had already did a full workout or so on. And after their workout, they were playing ones. And I can't say I know Tre. I've spoken to him a few times. Man of very little words.
I've never seen him with anybody but his dad, which
He's
is
like
crazy.
this. One of the funny things, and we've talked about it offline, is that if you like would see him at high school tournaments, he's like a one man entourage. He moves by himself, doesn't have a bunch of people around him. He just beats to his own drum. So he comes in the gym. I think he's with his dad. Comes in the gym and just jumps in the game. And he's
Oh,
just,
hold on. Let me ask you a question. Did they know who he was?
I'm not sure. I'm
All
not
right.
sure. I don't remember. Well, the guys that aren't from Dallas definitely didn't know who he
So the
was.
one guy who I know who was there, who is from Dallas, did know who he was.
Yeah, I think he did. I think
Okay.
he did. But yeah, the guys that were doing their pre-draft that weren't from Dallas had no idea who he was. So anyway, long story short, when we talk about the athleticism, they're playing one-on-one, and he was giving out buckets. I mean, step back. I mean, all tough contested shots. He wasn't getting to the rim at all. It was step backs, fadeaways, side steps, just all work from the mid-range jumper. So one particular player jumped on him, like got in his airspace to and forced him to his right. Tre got by him. And if you know anything about playing one on one, if somebody's forcing you right and you drive right, the easy shot is a right hand layup. With Tre tried a left hand dunk, driving to his right, which means his whole body was in the defender's face. He missed the dunk. Anyway, I said all that to say this. He is a much better athlete than what he's given credit for, and his game isn't based off of athleticism, because
Yeah.
anytime you can try to dunk on somebody playing one on one, and you're not dunking on a help side defender, you're dunking on the man that is meeting you stride for stride. You have to have some electricity or some power in that leg, or whether you're a 2 foot jumper. So anyway, I
He's
think
okay.
he's a
So
good athlete.
I'm not saying he's not a good athlete. He is not a
He's not
he's not
VJ
an Anthony.
Edgecombe.
He's not VJ. Exactly. There you go. That's a better comparison. I was gonna say somebody wild like Anthony Edwards. There's nobody's Anthony Edwards. He's not VJ Edgecombe, but he's a very good athlete.
Yeah.
My concerns are that with him is that he's just such a tough shot maker. He's gonna have to make some adjustments, and I think he is making these adjustments. It's just gonna be, will he be able to showcase some of the adjustments that he's been able to make? But like I told you, Rob, so sophomore, those same turnaround, those tough shots, he was getting them. He was shooting sidestep threes in the 10th grade on on a dude that got drafted. And Kaysen didn't eat all the points, but whatever. He's shooting sidestep threes on the guy that got drafted for his defense. Like
Yeah.
he was unafraid of the moment. Like I said, he led that team, Lake
A
Highlands,
public
and
school, not a school, not a
nah.
not
And
a like
listen to
hotbed for producing a
listen,
bunch of talent. It's not like, if you're familiar with Dallas basketball, it's not like Duncanville where you had
no,
Anthony Black and Ron Holland, and you've had like, just high level players come in and out. This is Lake Highlands. I mean, I could be
yeah.
wrong, but I don't know anybody
So,
that came out of
so how since I've been around here, like Lake Highlands, when I first got involved with basketball here, my guys would tell me like, "Yo, I got to get my 20 before the fourth quarter starts because I'm not gonna get in the game at the fourth quarter because the game was over. Like they weren't good." But before, what's the dude's name? He went to Illinois. It was like Carter brothers. They went there. It was a long time ago. I'm dating myself. So like the talent in the suburbs, like it comes in waves. Like sometimes you can catch a wave, and other times you may catch a wave, but we just not good. So they caught a wave. They were trending up in the right direction. And then Tre gets there, a couple other guys, they follow suit and they win. They go undefeated, which is really, really, I think they went undefeated. I believe they went undefeated. Don't, flag me if they didn't. But they went undefeated as a public school in Texas, which is some of the best public school basketball, I think, in the country is being played here,
I don't
being
know. They
slept
keep
on.
poaching them.
They keep well, that's
All the
just a
top
sign of
Texas
how good they
kids,
are because they keep
all
poaching them.
a lot of the top Texas kids in 25, 26 left the state for
Yeah.
NIL states, and that's a
Well,
huge issue here. But
the
I don't.
talent is definitely there in Tre Johnson. He definitely has talent.
All right, when we return, I know we kind of went on a tangent here. When we return, we're
You
going to
always have
talk.
to tell that story though.
Yeah. Hey, I still got the video. People have been asking me for the video, but I'm, I'm not gonna release it unless I make you sign an NDA. All right,
Hey,
when we return, we're gonna talk a little bit more about Tre Johnson as the NBA prospect. We're gonna talk about thoughts about him going to Texas, and of course, we're gonna talk about some of the changes James had hinted that he seemed to make. But first, let's talk about eBay Motors because passion, drive, and patience, it is the formula for winning championships, but it is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, whether it's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, and you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you will get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need and the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and the eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers. Once again, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. Now, you got to check out the Locked On NBA podcast. I think you're going to enjoy it because there's no off season in the NBA. And with Locked On NBA, they provide you with daily basketball analysis from national and local experts, and you get it in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. All right, Tre Johnson went into a little story about his background and how he won at a public school, how he was giving current guys that are collecting NBA checks buckets fresh out of PE or whatever class he was coming from. I think he even went back to school. But anyway, let's talk about his offensive strengths. You talked about him being a tough shot taker, tough shot maker. I agree with that. He's a guy that does a lot of his damage in the mid post, not like necessarily the low post. I even went back and said that he's got like a 2000s era NBA game. And you may wonder, what do I mean by that? Like, if you go back and watch the NBA in the Allen Iverson era, it was a lot of isolation basketball, a lot of one on one, not a lot of what you see today, pick and roll, drive and kick, draw two defenders, kick it out to one. Scoring was a little down. I mean, the game was more physical, but there were a lot of guys like Jerry Stackhouse that thrived in that era where you mid post guards posted up, ISOs at the elbow, or what they call ISO logo. You know, in every NBA court, there's the logo that's, I guess in between the short corner and the corner three, where they would just let the best player get the ball there and go to work. Tre Johnson has all of that in his game, but the game is not necessarily played like that anymore. And so, is that part of your concern about maybe his long-term fit?
Yeah, in a sense, I agree with you, but in a sense, I disagree with you because we see, okay, perfect example. I'm not saying Tre Johnson is him, but Anthony Edwards gets every opportunity to score, just like how you just mentioned. And if he ever adds like a consistent post game, I mean, he's already unbelievably hard to guard, but like he basically on offense minus the playmaking, he has everything a 90s 2000 shooting guard has, except for he shoots threes off the dribble, which is what we do, that they do, excuse me, not we, especially not you, because you straight low block post up score, but that's another topic. But he does everything. It includes the 3-point ball like a modern wing does.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard, I mean, post up, he does everything, mid range, all of that stuff. The difference is we shoot threes off the dribble these days. They didn't do that uh 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. Tre Johnson, he can do all those things, but I just like in the Anthony Edwards or even the VJ Edgecombe comparison, he doesn't have, at least from what I've seen, off the dribble that burst that they have, which gets you to the rim. So if you're not going to get a lot of foul attempts, right, and you're relying on tough shots, then your efficiency can go. And then when your efficiency isn't what you want it to be or everything is tough, then your draft stock can drop. And that is my biggest concern with him. Is he going to get to the basket enough to make up for, or I guess to balance out the diet of tough shots? I'm buying him as a 3-point shooter, just the potential to shoot. He shot the ball. I think he didn't shoot the ball as good at length, but he shot the ball in that McDonald's game, and that's one game, obviously. But he showed you that catching and shooting he can do all that stuff. But at Texas, will he get? What is it going to look like at Texas? Again, I'm a huge Tre Johnson fan. No disrespect to Texas. I personally wouldn't have gone to Texas if I were him
I would have
because
went. I just would have had to know who's around me, and am I gonna have the ball in my hands?
for those same reasons, I'm not going to Texas because they're going to keep recruiting and keep recruiting and keep. I mean, they're Texas. Like I know they're not a foot. They're not. They are, excuse me, a football school. I'm not
Say
about to, I'm
they
not trying to
back.
get jumped.
They
They just
back.
beat Michigan up. Hold on, I'm not trying to get jumped. I live out here. They are a football school, but they still pay attention to the basketball program. It's still a whatever conference they're in. It's still a powerhouse Like it's still Texas.
They're in the
I just personally
SEC. You know what?
can't keep up
They
with these
used to
teams.
be in the Southwestern Conference. Now they in the
Man, Terrence
SEC.
Renshire played for them in the Southwestern Conference.
Yeah,
That's crazy, right? You didn't think I knew who he was, but
Terrence
I
Renshire
don't
from New
understand.
York.
I don't I don't know if I hope Texas is the good is a good fit for Tre Johnson. Let's just put it that way. I personally wouldn't have done that, but that's his decision, and it'd be interesting to see if he gets to play how he should play versus how he wants to play at Texas.
Yeah, I think the way to offset some of those concerns is to have him play with the ball in his hands. Now, is that best for his draft stock? Yes. Is that best for what Texas wants to do? I don't
And
know.
that is the issue. So, do you
But
want me to go ahead
hold on, I
and
want to add this
go
though real
ahead?
fast. I will say, like you said, it is one game. And you talked about the McDonald's game. I don't want to go a whole episode without mentioning how well he played that game. I
He
have
was
that he had
hooping.
17 points, was 6 of 9 from the floor, but he was 5 of 7 from three. So I do think that he can play in a catch and shoot role, but I just want to see him with the ball in his hands because the last time I watched him play live in a full court game, it was last spring, and it was a tournament here in Dallas, and it's like he played the game before Cooper Flag, and I actually got the film. I filmed it. I basically just had my camera and I followed him every single play of that game, and I left that particular game more impressed with his passing than his the scoring because you could tell like he knew he can get buckets. He knew he can get his 25 or 30 at ease, but he was setting guys up and he was making like all the right passes, live dribble passes, skip passes. I think the shot making and the scoring and his ability to just get buckets definitely overshadows his passing and his playmaking. And he's 6'5" or 6'6" with a 7 foot wingspan.
And that is what I think is going to, if it works out, that is what should unlock him to be a lottery pick. Now, will he get those opportunities at Texas? I don't know. I have to look at that roster. I'm pretty sure they got a point guard. Texas is handing out Ferraris to backup quarterbacks and stuff. So like they gonna
But a
take care of
backup quarterback is getting paid like 1.2 million more than a
the
starting quarterback.
but I'm just saying, like they got money. They have bags. I think, and I guess I'll just go ahead with this segment. If Tre Johnson gets, let's just use the synergy chart. He should be at 25% pick and roll ball handler to unlock who he should become at the NBA. To unlock the full Tre Johnson package, 25% of his on or all his ball reps, play types, whatever you want to call it, should be as the pick and roll ball handler. I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity. If he does, he will surprise you. with his passing, with his playmaking. And I think that is going to, in turn, get him those free throw shots, excuse me, those free throw attempts, those rim pressures that you need. If you just throw him on the wing and say he's a spot up, ISO, whatever, and you don't give him the pick and roll ball reps, I don't think it's going to look as pretty as you would want it to. And I told you this. We basically agreed. I told you this like 2 months ago. That yo, he needs to be his whole everything should be pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll, and then that will unlock some of the other stuff that he does very well.
No, I agree 100%. All right, when we return, I have a few questions for you. I'm going to ask you a little bit more to go in depth a little bit more about his finishing at the rim. We're going to talk about what happens if he does get to play with the ball in his hands and what happens if he doesn't, and then name, some teams you think would be a good fit, his draft range, and some additional concerns. Stay tuned. All right, last segment. All right, let's just play this game. Texas is listening to our podcast,
Hey,
or maybe they didn't need our help anyway. But Tre has the ball in his hands, not necessarily their primary ball handler, but they're putting him in plays where he can make plays out of ball screens and so on. How high do you think he could go in the draft?
I think he could be a lottery pick if he does what he's supposed to do and he's getting those pick and roll reps. I think he can be a lottery pick in this draft.
Do you think he needs that to be a lottery pick? Do you think he can be a lottery pick without heavy on ball reps?
I think he could. I think it's going to take a savvy organization to dig deeper and see what he is. It's not the same thing, but like hey man, I guess you could say I'm right, but I told you like yo, Stefan Castle as a playmaker is that guy, right? And then when he did get the opportunity to do that in summer league, he
Played
looked
like
like a
one game.
he played three in California, man. Come on, man.
Okay.
So he showed you he showed you the playmaking in California in that one game. But like you could tell that he could really pass the ball. He just didn't do what he was asked. They didn't ask him to do that at UConn, right?
Right.
So maybe it takes an organization to say, hey man, Texas didn't use you how we would maybe use you, or maybe you have some more to show, then maybe he still goes in the lottery. But like you got to think in that same conference, you got Igor Domin. He's going to have the ball in his hands. He's six. What they listen at 6'8", six nine.
I've stood next to him. Igor might be 6'9", and
All
he's
right,
got
so let's say
and
he's
him
six.
and Tre got the same baby face. They could be still growing.
All right, so let's say Igor is 6'8". Igor is gonna have the ball in his hands. He's gonna get to show you the whole package. You know what I'm saying? They're not just gonna jam him on the wing. No way. BYU was trying to make inroads. You feel me? They trying to go. They trying to get the Banter. They trying to get some other guys too. So they're gonna cater to Igor, and Igor has game like that. He
But
can.
I also think Igor is going to have more slack if he's not a one and done. Well, I
Do
think
you think he's not a
Tre.
one and done?
No, I'm just saying if he's not a one and done, BYU, like I think he has a different situation. I think with Texas, Tre got to get in and get out because they may be recruiting somebody
Or
that,
you could do if it doesn't work, you can always hit the portal and go somewhere else. He could be a two
yeah,
year guy. I mean, there's no shame in being a 2 year guy.
there's
Sometimes
no
it
shame in
works
it.
that.
But I just think that Igor probably has a little bit. He's gonna have more. It's weird. He's probably gonna have more reps, higher usage, less pressure.
Yeah, he's at BYU.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a new coach. New coach is trying to, he's trying to get guys. And the best way to get guys is to say, hey, look what we did for this guy. We put the ball in his hands. And then if Igor goes in the lottery, now guess what? Hey,
but isn't that what we thought about Coach Terry at Texas? We thought like Ron Holland was supposed to go there and he was going to get the green light
I
because
think, but here's the
he was
thing.
trying
I
to get
think,
guys. He's a new coach. Kind of
yeah,
got hired under, the rumors were they didn't necessarily want to hire him,
but he
but
won
he
those
was
games. He
winning,
had to.
so they had to.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think if Ron goes to Texas and not G League Ignite, I don't think he was he was the fifth pick, right?
Hmm.
I don't think he's the fifth pick if he goes to Texas.
Who knows? They probably would have him playing the four. I don't know.
Exactly.
Who
I
who
don't.
who
I think.
knows?
I think they
But
would
then
have
again, I
played
don't
him.
know. Yeah, Ron and Dylan Mitchell on the same team.
Man, they'd have found some way to have him do flying up and down the
Yeah,
court.
they
I
just
just
like
don't. I think college basketball coach is going to do, for the most part, what it's going to take for you to help us win games. And if we're not necessarily trying to give you these on ball reps, if that's like we're not necessarily trying to develop you, especially if we know this is probably every player in college basketball is on a 1 year deal. I'm not trying to develop you, dog.
yeah.
I'm
All
trying
right.
to I'm trying to win. So yeah. And if you would get to the next level playing with us, how you gonna play? Great. If not, we're just gonna hit the portal, man. And try to find somebody to replace you. So I just that's just the nature of what college basketball is.
Yep. All right. Question about Trey's ability to score in the paint. Do you think it is he can't get there consistently, or do you think his thin frame doesn't allow him to finish efficiently in traffic, especially, maybe on the college level?
I don't think it's his frame. I don't think he has a
He's
great
gotten
first.
stronger though. He that from his junior year to now, I think that he's
Oh yeah,
definitely
his
gotten a
jersey
lot
was super
stronger.
baggy in high school.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's his frame. I just don't think he has a great first step. I don't think he has a great first step. I don't think he has um bursts in tight spaces like how you would think a VJ Edgecombe does. And that's what I think is going to. I mean, the difference between a Ferrari and a BMW as far as speed. BMW is still a great car, but it's not a Ferrari. It's not going to get you to that spot as quick. I'm talking about a BMW, whatever. So like, I just don't think he has like top end athleticism in the half court, which to me limits. But you can overcome that with skills, being crafty. Again, athleticism is great, but I tell you, Ralph, like I don't every everybody is athletic at the NBA level to an extent. There's levels to it, yes, but like, are you crafty? Being the most athletic guy only means so much. Like, what can you do? I think Tre Johnson is crafty, but I think you're going to see the best of Tre Johnson's craft in pick and roll, not necessarily in isolation,
Yeah.
unless he has a mismatch.
I still think he's a good athlete. It's almost
No,
like,
again, I'm not saying he's a bad athlete. I'm saying he's a good athlete. I don't think he is a great
no,
athlete.
he's not a great athlete, but I think he's more athletic than people give him
Yes.
credit for. And I think it's almost very reminiscent to around this time 2 years ago. I was talking about Keontae George, and people were saying he's not a good athlete. And I'm like, his game isn't built off athleticism. And I remember sending this guy this video of Keontae jumping over somebody and dunking, and he was like, "What?" I was like, "No, his game, he's a shot maker. He's a guy that in high school he was a tough shot maker." Keontae and Tre aren't the same player, but I can actually see them having very similar paths to the NBA,
And
where
Keontae was what pick in the
like
draft?
16 or something like that.
16. I think Tre
I don't think
is
Trey's gonna
probably
put on like too much weight like Keontae did, but I do think that he could have some flashes. He could ride, the pre college hype into mid first round at the lowest. And then in summer league, you're like, whoa, I didn't know he had that. I didn't know he could do that. And so I could definitely see that. So here's my last question for you. If
yeah.
Tre Johnson is not a lottery pick in the 2025 NBA draft, what happened?
He was not efficient. He didn't get to the foul line, and you didn't get to see him as a playmaker. And it sounds
Any
like if all those things happen, he's either back in school or in the portal. I guess that's just the nature. I'm not saying that I know him, but that's just the nature of how kids are at college
that's how
basketball
the
these
game
days.
works.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. If you missed yesterday's episode, we did a similar show, scouting report, dedicated to France's Nolan Traore. Today, it is all about Tre Johnson, the guy that James and I were huge fans. We've been following him for years.
Still am.
But we have some concerns about the fit and if he's going to have the freedom to do what he does best. I hope that he has the opportunity to play with the ball in his hands, because like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I think he's a very, very underrated passer, and the shot making just overshadows his ability to make plays for others. Well, once again, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast your first listen of the day. Now you have to check out the Locked On NBA Podcast. Why? Because the Locked On NBA Podcast is here for you year round. There's no off season, and you get local and national expertise. You can find it. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, it's Rafael with my brother James, and we are out.